Especially now, I know the times are different now than they were then. Because now you almost got to have a following of 10,000, 20,000 people before most industry people will even mess with you.
It helps.
Yeah, yeah.
It helps.
Well, how do you navigate? Like, if you have an artist that you hear that you're not going to tell them you don't have a great voice. They do have a great voice, but they don't have all the other stuff, the other components. What are you doing? How do you
Well,
help them?
I think first and foremost, I'm really respectful of people's feelings, but more importantly, I'm really respectful of people's time. And so the first thing I encourage everyone, or I try to, share with everyone is be sure that you want that conversation when you approach somebody like
Mm,
myself, right? Life is not fair, as we all know. It can be hard, but I think what's more detrimental to anybody is if I'm not authentic with my truth,
yeah.
right? I don't want to have to, um, I don't want to have to give people. My grandma used to say, "You tell people lies and feed them candy," right? Pacify somebody, make them feel good about a shortcoming or whatnot. I think the most direct path to any destination is a straight path, right?
Hmm.
And so I'm always going to be transparent. I'm always going to be forthright, and I'll give you my critique, my input. Now, one thing I'm always cautious of letting people know is this is my truth, right? This is how I see things objectively. That doesn't have to mean it's the absolute end all be all. I'm just telling you my perspective on things because you
Yeah.
asked me, right?
Yeah.
And then, so it's like first be sure that you want the conversation, right? Because everybody's not prepared to have the conversation. And then once we have the conversation, I'm gonna tell you, like, listen, I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm gonna tell you the truth. You know what I'm saying? But I'm always respectful because I'm
Yeah.
not in this to hurt people's feelings. I'm not here to crush dreams. I'm not here to kick nobody down when they're already in a vulnerable state. I also know that my opinion might matter more to someone inquiring than their best friend or the mailman or their mama. You might care a little bit more about what I say. So I'm gonna deliver it in a sensitive manner, or empathetic manner, right? However, the truth is the truth, right? And so sometimes the truth of the matter is maybe the music's not good enough, right? I would say 7.5 times out of 10, I find myself over inundated with music that's either passive or average, right?
Mm.
Passive music mean it's not bad, it's not great, it's somewhere between a 5 and a 6, but it's forgettable, right? Average, in lieu of the same spirit, where it's like, I find, like I said, 75 to 80% of music that you hear is just average. It's just okay. And so while somebody might be trying their hardest, it's almost like going to the NBA, right? You could really love basketball, but unless you are all area, all conference, top 20 player in your state, the chances of you getting into, chances of you being courted and selected by a D1 college, slim to none. But then you got to go to that D1 college, and let's just say at minimum, it's 50 states. Each state has five elite D1 schools that they choosing from. Okay,
Yeah.
so now we're talking about 250 schools, and they're all jockeying for what's that, 40 to
Uh-huh.
60
Yeah.
slots
Yeah.
in the draft.
Yeah.
40 to 60 slots in the draft,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's only 650 players in the NBA.
Yeah.
So it's 12 players on each team, right? It's 12 players on each team. You're looking at five schools. So you're looking at 60 kids, just say 60 kids from each state, right?
Yeah.
You got 60 kids from each state, and then you're talking 50 states, right? 3,000,
Yeah. And that's just the top D ones.
right? These are so you 3,000,
Yeah.
and they looking for 20%. I mean 2%. They're
Yeah.
looking for 2% of that.
Yeah.
My point being, it's a lot of barriers to entry when you want to be in professional sports. If you want to go to Olympics, academia, if you want to be an attorney, you got to pass the bar.
Right.
There's zero gateway or barrier to entry in music. So it allows for everyone to think that their opinion or their output is worthy of consideration. When the truth of the matter is, it's not. You know, it should be a lot more people. And again, I don't want people to not pursue their dreams and stuff. But if you really look at it, most of the time when people want things, it's surface level because you got to have the talent to get you there. You got to have the desire, right? And you got to have the uncanny ability to bounce back of somebody saying, it's not my cup of tea. It's
Mhm.
not my favorite. I've heard better, right? And hopefully it's not dealt those messages aren't dealt with maliciousness or whatnot.
Yeah.
But people oftentimes, I guess, bark up that tree prematurely, right? And so I think I'm okay telling people, you know, for me it didn't work. I didn't necessarily get it. It doesn't feel like something that I can move forward with. I always keep it personal to me because I don't want people to. I'll never put somebody in a position to say, "Well, you're not going to be able to." This won't work for any other executive. Another A&R might
Right.
not like it.
Right.
Another producer might not like it. To each his own, right? And then I also want to be mindful never to cut something off at the legs because what if that artist is just what if I'm seeing you right now at stage 2 and in 4 years you're at stage 10 and it's a completely different conversation. And by the way, that's happened. I've circled back to artists that I didn't necessarily feel passionate about or compelled to move forward in business and then circle back at, a later date. And so I think it's a two-pronged question, right? First, you have to have the emotional maturity to handle a critique, which isn't always the case. But then also too, for the people in position, you just got to learn how to tend to people's feelings. Be direct without being uh, victim to disrespect.
Yeah.
The two
Yeah.
things don't have to be synonymous.
Right.
You can make me a cup of coffee, and I can say, it's a little too sweet for me. I appreciate you. I don't have to like down talk your coffee making
Coffee's
ability. You know what
trash.
I'm saying? Like, the message gets across the same way. So, I think it's just a matter of
Yeah.
navigating that with individuals.
That's powerful, man. I have a friend that says his favorite saying, "Stop wanting what you don't want."
Hmm.
And people are always wanting a particular thing, but not quite understanding what you're really asking
But
for.
that's in life.
It is.
Think about it as young men, we grow up and you want the pretty girl,
Right.
and you get the pretty girl.
Uh-huh.
You don't realize the baggage that comes with the pretty girl. You
Most
don't
of them crazy.
realize you don't realize the emotional harm that might have came from her being a quote unquote pretty girl.
Yeah.
How many times she's been approached, how jaded she might be, how materialistic that might have made her, right? How emotionally vulnerable, how surface level her conversations might be,
Yep.
and so many things going with dating that pretty girl or whatnot that you might have always thought you wanted, or maybe because each individual is case by case. Maybe you meet a pretty girl, she's a horrible person, and now she's like, okay, I'm gonna just take advantage of this guy because
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. But from the outside looking in, we all wanted it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Like
Right.
you get a high paying job, you think you want the high paying job until you get the high charge of taxes, right?
Yeah.
When you get everybody around you asking for things
Man,
constantly and stuff like that,
you have no
and
idea
you know what I'm saying.
how
So
prophetic you're being.
it's like Biggie said, more money, more problems. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
for
saying? That's
sure.
that's probably the most truest rhetoric ever spoken in music. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, and so oftentimes we think we want these things, but we're not quite aware of the qualifications or the weight of it. Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's funny looking back, and I had a chance to reflect on it years ago because it was a long time ago. I was a much younger man. And the truth of the matter is, Oscar Fields wasn't brutal. He wasn't rude or disrespectful. He was actually all the things you said you tried to encompass in being able having to tell an artist or a potential artist the truth. And he did that. I realized back then it was my fragility that messed me up. Because someone telling you you don't have a great voice is a matter of perspective, like
Mhm.
you said. And it becomes also a matter of choice. It's like to somebody, you're never the best at something.
Yeah,
There are people who are still arguing whether or not Michael Jordan was the best ever.
yeah, which is
And
lunacy for multiple reasons because clearly he was.
yeah,
But that's a different topic.